Yet we want to be a traditional marriage state. Are we placed in this position because the federal law defers to state law on marriages and withholds benefits? If civil liberties unions were included in the federal law, wouldn't that solve the benefit issue? Where is our federal delegation on this matter? What has been done? And I haven't heard anything from them. In 1998, 269,617 voters, including myself, passed that amendment for traditional marriage. Senator He says in his report from the Standing Committee on the Senate that it is an equality issue. However, we agree with Senator Sloan that this bill is not about equal rights, it's a privilege. On religious organizations, the Senate Standing Committee admits in its report that 2 revisions made in August and September were so confusing to the church.
In terms of getting ready for the next group, this is the last of the 3,400 to 3,600. So if your number is between 3,601 and 3,800, please check in. Again, that's between 3,601 and 3,800. Please check in. Okay, next testifier. Thank you. Okay.
Hi, my name is Janelle Yim, 3467. I strongly oppose SB1. Same-sex activists say that, quote, ending exclusion of marriage would strengthen families and it would take away nothing from anyone else. However, a Canadian study based on the 2006 Canadian census just released a couple months ago in August states children living with gay and lesbian families in 2006 were about 65% as likely to graduate compared to children living in opposite sex marriage families. Daughters of same-sex parents do considerably worse than sons. You know the detrimental costs of dropout high school students on our society. As evidence, it would affect all of us, gay or straight. However, I have another quote by a prominent sociologist, David Popenwa, states, the burden of social science evidence supports that idea of gender differentiating parents is important for human development, and the contribution of fathers to child rearing is unique and irreplaceable. The complementarity of male and female parenting styles is striking and of enormous importance to a child's overall development. Do not let your fears override what you know is right. Quote, it is better to be trusted than to be loved. You know what is right and wrong. Your choice is to either listen to the voice of the people or not. But remember, your consequences of your choice, remember, you cannot escape the consequences of your choice, and you will be held accountable for that choice. Listen to your conscience and vote no to SB1. Thank you.
Okay, next, please.
Aloha. My name is Theon Ta'ala, and I am registration number 3556. I stand behind my written testimony. I oppose Senate Bill 1, but I would like to say that I am so grateful to be a citizen of this great country, United States. I am grateful for our forefathers who were inspired to establish this great country and write our Constitution. I am grateful for the inalienable rights and freedoms our Constitution gives us. And because of this, I can stand before you in public and state my belief without being afraid or having a fear of being oppressed or imprisoned or killed. This is my first time to testify in public, and I am here to make a stand. I am a strong advocate of traditional marriage between a man and a woman. I cannot support any bill that legalizes same-sex marriage. This does not mean that I am a bigot or that I do not love my fellow men. What it means is that I have the right to follow the dictates of my heart. And my heart tells me that I cannot support a lifestyle that goes against my moral values and against the nature of God. This is my stand. And because I have to live with myself every day, I need to do all that I can to defend it. If I do not stand for something, I stand for nothing. As a law-abiding citizen, I ask you to please vote no on Senate Bill 1. Mahalo.
Thank you. Next, please come up.
Good afternoon. Colonel Retired Tim Fujino, number 3502. Chair Rhodes, Chair Luke, and both committees, thank you so much for your endurance. After so much testimony regarding the concerns and questions surrounding this bill, my question to the committees is, what is the rush? Why are we rushing to approve this bill, this extremely controversial bill, in a 5-day or 2-week session? I ask you to vote no to Senate Bill 1 to allow adequate time to fully address the concerns, the impact this bill will have, an impact which goes I've been on combat deployments, and I fully appreciate the importance of tolerance, diversity, and respect, no matter what your sexual orientation. But I'm deeply concerned with the reverse discrimination that is inherent in this bill. How ironic that the text of Senate Bill 1 is prefaced with a statement relating to equal rights. But what about parental rights? What about the rights of private educational institutions or the rights of faith-based organizations? Senate Bill 1 is a defective bill which does not adequately address these concerns. Please vote no to Senate Bill 1 and allow time to address the issues during the general session in January. Allow time to craft another bill which better addresses the concerns for both sides, to balance requirements of the public accommodations laws while protecting the rights of those who do not believe in same-sex marriage. But please, please do not allow the excuse of 1 year's federal tax exemptions to validate the enactment of a law that is defective and discriminatory. Thank you for your time and for your service. Aloha.
Thank you. Next.
Okay, hello. My name is Deanne Ayua. My number is 3522. This is my first time testifying, and if I could be honest from the very beginning, that this past election was the first time I actually registered to vote. I'm a 32-year-old mother, a daughter, citizen of Hawaii, and more importantly, the U.S. I'm just very grateful for the opportunity to be here to testify, and when it was opened up to the public, I was pleased to participate in the process. Let's see. So I covered that I'm a wife. I'm 32 years old, a wife, a mother, and a daughter. I'm a child of God who believes that marriage should remain between one man and one woman. This has been the tradition since the beginning of time, and I believe it has remained so because it is proven to be effective. Being a daughter raised primarily by my mother, and now I am a mother myself of 2 very young special boys, I can see how the structure of family, including a mother and a father, can have a positive impact on the growth of a child. I firmly believe that a mother innately offers a caring, nurturing, and loving upbringing for a child. Balanced with the adventurous, riskier, fearless approach of a father, my heart tells me that this was particularly God's design for family. As Senate Bill 1 is presented before the House, I ask that you firmly consider the rights not only of the gay community, but those who are people of faith. It is not fair nor right that people of faith should have to participate in activities that directly violate our beliefs and in traditional marriage. I've seen Jesus, the 10 Commandments, prayer, and reference to God as our hero has already been removed from the public education system. I'd like to know who is fighting for my First Amendment rights as well. I hope that my testimony is taken into consideration and is received in love. I'm standing forth for what I believe, not to cause dissension or fighting, but to protect my current and future family members, to honor what I believe is natural, God-honoring, and the truth. As a concerned citizen and voting citizen, I ask that you, as an elected official, listen to the people that you represent and go forward with what we're speaking through you. I would like you to let the people decide. I trust that you will represent me and my family as we wish to be seen. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up.
Leilani Miller, number 3417. I take marriage very seriously. I take family very seriously, and I take having children very seriously. And that is the very defining power and responsibility that sets a relationship between a man and a woman apart from a same-gender relationships. It takes both a man and a woman to create another human being. This relationship is essential to our very existence. It predates governments and is a very foundational unit of society. Marriage, the solemnization of this relationship, was created and defined by religions before governments decided to recognize it and offered benefits in order to encourage this very wholesome and beneficial relationship to society. Government's role is not to define, but to protect it. The definition that SB1 provides is unacceptable. A marriage is not defined by its solemnization. It is a relationship that includes everything leading up to and after that solemnization. Leave religions to exercise freely their beliefs to define, recognize, solemnize, and support marriages as they see fit, without circumstantial restriction, a true free exercise of religion. Now, according to the law, if you're concerned about awarding the same benefits and privilege to another, a similar but different relationship, define it as such, a similar but different relationship. As a future mother, I am extremely afraid of bringing children into this deteriorating society and the effects of others that will have on their innocent, impressionable, and delicate eyes and ears. Please be rapid and free exchange of information and media. If you're so bent on definitions, I urge you to further define the protections against any infringement of currently existing rights and not leave that up to interpretation. Leave academics to the schools, leave religion to the churches, leave raising children and the teaching of morals to the parents, and leave the safeguarding of rights and privileges to a government responsive and responsible to its citizens. Please vote against SB1.
Thank you. Next up.
Good afternoon. My name is Lauren Arimoto, and my number is 3495. Dear Chair Rhodes and Luke, thank you for allowing me to testify. I am testifying to voice my strong opposition to Bill SB1. I am a public school educator, a parent, and I have voted in every election since graduating from college. I am asking you to allow the people to decide on the issue of marriage, as I believe this very contentious and complex issue requires more time for public input and study of possible social ramifications. In the classroom, we teach our children to respect the right of others and teach them about our Constitution and what democracy really means. What message are we sending them when we do not allow the democratic process to work? Because the voice of the people is not heard in a 6-day special session. As an educator, I am greatly concerned about what this could mean to our educational system. And I have worked at this system in education for the past 29 years. When something like this becomes law, the term equality becomes blurred, as evidenced in other countries and states that have passed same-sex marriage laws. In the defense of equality, the rights of others are trampled on, and in the end, our children are the losers. This bill should be given due process during the regular session, where it can be properly vetted and examined as other bills. Please consider the lessons other states and countries have learned from passing these laws. In education, the purpose of studying history is so we can learn from the mistakes of others and not commit making the same errors. Please do not allow these mistakes to be perpetuated by not listening to the voice of the people who voted for you. Thank you very much for this opportunity to testify. And my question also is, who is going to protect our rights as educators? Thank you.
Thank you. Next up.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Kai. My number is 3531. I am the senior pastor of Inspire Church in Waikele, in Mililani, downtown Honolulu, and hopefully to a district near you. I am a father of 3 daughters. I have 3 girls. I have a wife. I have 2 female dogs. I have a house full of estrogen. But I consider a privilege and an honor to stand here before you, and I thank you for your time. I know you have spent countless hours sitting there and either looking at us or computer screens because you have massive decisions to make in the future. You know, our state motto, you've heard this over and over again, the life of the land is perpetuated in righteousness. There's two words that stick out to me. The words perpetuated and the words righteousness, pono. Perpetuated and pono. In order for us to perpetuate pono with the vote, then the people must feel the pressure. You are under tremendous pressure. I've been watching you for 4 days, 12 hours a day sitting here or upstairs or another 2 hours at home. This is crazy. This is like television drama. We're about to watch something terrible happen or something great happen depending on who you are. You are under tremendous pressure, internal and external, and it is wrong. You should not be under that pressure. Put the pressure on the people. We can handle it. We can vote. Put it on the people. Because that would be pono. That would be perpetuating righteousness. Do not circumvent the process. I urge you. I respect each and every one of you and your views. But I ask that you respect the way that we do things in America. We perpetuate righteousness. We do it the right way. Thank you and God bless you for your time. Mahalo.
Next up, please come up.
Mahalo, Vice Chairwoman, Committee. My name's Giuseppe Locatelli.
Your number?
It's 3512. And I believe that the word equality is misrepresented and in the name of this bill, and it contradicts the will of the people of Hawaii. As a Catholic, I could enumerate various reasons, a number of reasons why I'm opposed to this bill, such as conscience clause, and if you look at the first miracle that Christ performed, it was the wedding of Cana. But I'd like to put on my policy wonk hat for a second, my Harvard policy wonk hat, and if I'd like to ask you if you have any questions for me. I'm currently writing a book on the subject of marriage and the state of marriage in the United States right now, and historically how we got here to this point. So I ask you to ask me any questions. I have an alternative that I believe that would be beneficial for all, on all sides in this room. And I've heard a number of other testimonies of people asking you to provide an alternative. And I think there's an alternative to this problem that we're in. So I thank you.
Thank you. Next up.
Okay. Aloha, my name is Kent Olilani Alverio, number 3487, local resident, registered voter, and age old enough. Anyway, first of all, I'd like to thank all of you for giving us the opportunity to voice our thoughts on this monumental issue. I apologize for the actions of people that said things and did things that were disrespectful to each other. And I also apologize to beloved friends, excuse me, and family who may be offended by my views. However, I do not apologize for my having my own opinion, feelings, and fully utilizing my freedom of speech. I speak in strong opposition to SB1. I love and respect those that do not share the same point of view, and I only ask the same in return. I believe that the people deserve the right to vote on such an important issue, regardless of what they believe in. As a local-born resident and native Hawaiian, I know that although I don't speak for everyone, I know I speak for the vast majority of the people. And in fact, there's polling that shows that 80% of the people, feel that, we should let the people decide. Sadly, 100 years ago, a few special interest members and 100 Marines made the decision for everyone. Do you want to repeat the past mistakes? Respectfully, you're here to represent the people and speak for the people. It is your job to uphold democracy and listen to the collective will of the people. It is no secret that a lot of Hawaii's people do not vote, and unfortunately, this fact may be the object of exploitation, and sadly, may be the reason for this special session. Where does that stop? Where does it end? What legacy do you want to leave your children? Yes, once in a while, the kind, loving, compassionate, easygoing people need a good hard kick in their complacencies. And well, I think the people have woken up in huge numbers and they need to be heard. If not here, then at the next elections. So I asked you how many more decisions will be made for the people against their will. And I humbly ask you to slow down and review this matter. I believe that together as an Ohana, we can come up with a solution that benefits all the people of Hawaii. God bless you.
Thank you. I'll take the next set. Karen.
Hi. My name is Mary Rossalowicz. I'm number 33,601. I'm from Honolulu, and I'm a registered voter.
Thank you.
Okay. I believe, as I think most people do, in equal rights
Can you
and
speak
protections.
closer to the mic?
I'm sorry.
Thank you very much.
I believe, as I think most people do, in equal rights and protections under the law. And I strongly oppose Senate Bill 1. This bill will abridge religious freedoms and practices for people and religious organizations who do not believe in solemnizing same-sex marriages or having their religious facilities participate in these unions. Legitimizing same-sex marriages as equal by law effectively makes a protected class for a lifestyle and makes that lifestyle a legally and socially sanctioned alternative to traditional marriage. This opens up a whole Pandora's box of social consequences far beyond a right to form a marriage contract and or recognize with loving acceptance those who participate. Several states and District of Columbia that have passed far less encompassing same-sex marriage laws than SB1 is. Particularly troubling is the public accommodation section of this bill, which may be construed to require religious organizations to host or participate in marriage ceremonies contrary to their beliefs under threat of legal and financial consequences. It really feels like the elected representatives of the state are trying to shove this bill down the throats of the people very quickly without the majority of people recognizing the larger ramifications and realizing what's at stake. Misleadingly cloaked in the language of political correctness like equal rights or fairness, and hidden in a wrapper of good-sounding intentions for a minority group when this bill promotes a social agenda and its freedom that is under attack. This bill is wrong. While race and gender are not changeable, shoot.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next up.
How's it? My number is 3640. My name is Brother Greg. Gee. What an amazing time. It's very exciting to be here this morning. And there's a lot of platforms that have been mentioned this morning. And I am a father of 4 beautiful children. I'm happily married with 9 years to my wife. I don't have any college degrees. I don't have PhDs. I'm not a lawmaker. I have none of those credentials. But I think having 4 kids and a Hawaiian, Chinese, Puerto Rican wife gives me some credentials. And yeah, that's another testimony. But I am a very strong Christian. I'm a born-again Christian. I believe in God. I believe in the sanctity of marriage. I strongly oppose SB1, but that's not going to be my platform this morning. Obviously, there are concerns as a parent of the things that will follow should this bill pass. And I don't think I have to further that anymore because I think we've heard quite a bit of that already. But I am here to share some things about this gentleman by the name of John Earl Shove. And he said there are many laws in life that we cannot ignore. There are laws of gravity. If I was to jump off the top of the ceiling this morning, I probably would get hurt because there's certain laws in place that I cannot deny. Laws of electricity. If I was to pull this light bulb out, stick my finger in it, there are certain laws of electricity that dictate that I will get electrocuted. The last law is the law of averages. And that one we cannot deny. 10,000 people were out here on Monday night protesting this bill. 8,000 people voted against this on the KITV.com poll. You guys obviously believe in the law of averages. You are sitting in your chair because you are the majority. Vote. If you don't believe in that, then give the minority your seat. Go with the people. Let the people decide on this matter. because we believe in you, we voted for you, and I ask that you either kill the bill or vote against it and let the people decide. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you. Next up.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Honorable chairs and committee members, thank you for your kind attention. My name is Garner Shimizu. I'm 54 years old and still part of the still young generation. My number is 3631. I speak peace and blessings to my LGBT brothers and sisters. We are all members of the human race, and I respect you for who you are. I can empathize with your inequity of federal benefits, among other things you have endured. We may have different fundamental belief systems, and we may have to agree to disagree, but we are not enemies. I oppose SB1 for various reasons. Much has already been elaborated on quite eloquently. I think there are too many unanswered questions and possible unintended consequences. The AG repeatedly referred to the courts getting involved. Doesn't it make sense to spend more time reviewing and working together to provide a better bill that you work out and not rubber stamp this? That would involve killing this bill, working out amendments, or considering a new better option like HB 5. Former Judge Ahu said last night, when a good and fair process is followed and people sense that fairness is followed, then the parties are better able to accept the outcome. That requires that the jury have enough time to discuss and deliberate amendment which reserves marriage to opposite-sex couples, voted for by almost 70% of the people in 1998, and a clear vote against same-sex marriage cannot be preserved and respected, then we, the people, would like to vote again on this and not leave it up to the legislature to redefine it. With the vast majority of public testimony against SB1, I believe we, the people, are questioning whether you will do what is right and fair. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, please.
My name is Grace Young, a registered voter living in Hawaii, Kalihi, and my number is 3792. Good morning, chairs and committee members. Thank you very much for your heart to serve the people. I was not born or raised here, but I now call this my land, my country, and my people. I love this land, these people who embraced me with open arms when I emigrated here 18 years ago. I strongly oppose SB1. I cannot emphasize more. My reasons are, first, as God's child, I'm here to uphold my Heavenly Father's law. Marriage was perfectly designed by our loving Father God for the good of each individual and the benefits of the human race. It's the holy covenant between one man and one woman before God, the Lord of all. Marriage existed long before any government. Actually, it was on the Father's heart even before the creation of heavens and earth. Therefore, nobody or any government has the power of wisdom to redefine it, change it, or make it better. Second, as a concerned mother of 4, I do not want my children to be exposed in any sexual education or influence other than God has designed for them. Third, I am a concerned citizen. If SB1 were to be passed, the freedom of the people of Hawaii, the freedom of speech and religion would be jeopardized. Maybe you have taken freedom for granted, or maybe you don't know what life is without freedom. But I, who once lived in China, do know. Do you know what USA is to people in countries where there is no freedom? This land is almost like heaven to them. Do you know millions of people desire to come here for the sake of freedom? A lot even risk their lives. Chinese immigrants here do not like to speak in the public because we are so used to our voice being ignored and decisions being made for us in our country of origin. But this issue is too important for me to keep silent. Please vote no for SB1.
Next up, please.
Aloha. My name is Pam Akina, number 3733. I'm from Kahuku, Oahu. I would like to expound on one of the points in my written testimony. I love our state, Hawaii state motto. In English, the life of the land is perpetuated in righteousness. The definition of righteous is morally upright people. The definition of perpetuated is to make something continue, usually for a long time. What if we go against the mandate of our state motto? This is what it will sound like. The life of the land will not be perpetuated in unrighteousness. To be more clear, the life of the land will not continue if we are not a morally upright people. What do we do when real bad things happen to us? Who do we turn to? We turn to our Heavenly Father. We turn to the Lord God Almighty, who is mighty to save. In the past few years, we've had numerous tsunami warnings here in Hawaii. Remember the Japan earthquake? There was a tsunami certain to hit us. Families along the shoreline went to higher ground. We stocked up on emergency supplies and food, and then we sat in front of the TV and waited to see what would happen, how bad would it hit us. Then nothing happened. In every one of the tsunami warnings we have had, there has been no tsunami. Is this a coincidence? I say no. Are we lucky? I say no. We were not hit because we were protected. The same God that we turn to when things are real bad for us is the same God that has protected us during these tsunami warnings. Why protect Hawaii? Because Hawaii is a land of people that have aloha and that try our best to obey God's commandments. This is the same Lord God Almighty whom we must continue to honor by obeying His laws. Don't try to change God's law. Holy matrimony.
Chairs and members of the committee, my name is Jeff Esmond, and my number is 3671. My baby turned 1 last week. Happy birthday. 2 days ago, along with my 2 3-year-olds, we went trick-or-treating for the first time. Many people take the ability to have children for granted. I don't. If ever there was a couple who believed in family and wanted children, it was us. We went through 9 in vitro fertility attempts in order to give birth to our children. That's not easy, and I cannot summarize years of our life in one sentence. But I can assure you, we wanted a family. Families come in many forms, as every single person here knows and lives. For my children, they have had 2 parents from the day they were born. Unfortunately, their parents, my civil union partner and I, are not able to get married here in the state of Hawaii. This is the 21st century. The fact is, we are a same-gender couple, and we have children. This is the reality. Look at us. We love our children. We are real people, and our children are real people too. I know what it's like to want the best for your children. We represent what so many people seem to be afraid of, a loving family of 2 daddies with happy children. I don't know what it is they are afraid of, but if you ask me, and this is just my feeling, those opponents who have stood up here and threatened you with your jobs for not listening to them are bullies. No one can look at my children and tell them that they don't deserve the dignity of having their 2 parents be married. I hope I never have to explain to my children that we are second-class citizens, and that's why the children of the bullies who have stood up here are bullying my children. This hearing fully represents the extent that we need equality in our state. Until this week, I did not believe SB1 had anything to do with education. But we have had studies quoted, such as the one by Mr. Okino of the Regeneris study, which has been unequivocally debunked by his peers. I can provide you with information. Support SB1. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, please come up.
I'm Elena Funakoshi. I strongly oppose SB1. My number is 3714. Salamat po, mahalo, domo arigato gozaimasu, dankeschön. We speak many languages in Hawaii. We are a multicultural people. I am a child of plantation days where, when we were a territory facing the many prejudices which existed at the time, especially when Japan attacked us. We immediately became almost like a non-citizen. We lost our rights. We could no longer speak Japanese. Our schools were closed. My girlfriend was sent to Japan in exchange for a military person. She had to be in Japan all the time. My Buddhist reverend was shipped out in a hole in a ship to go to the mainland to be interned. So my background is really about having gone through some loss of rights. Our country became a real powerful nation subsequent to that. A nation where majority rules. That's how you all were elected, by majority. Should then this issue not be placed, well, should be placed on the ballot for all the people to consider for, and you can then see the majority voted for it. You as a body, we really respect you for all that you do, and we just thank you because we know how generous you have been with your time and effort. We are not saying that our way is right, but we are just asking that you let the people decide. We thank you, and we just cannot really express how much we appreciate you.
Thank you. Next up.
Aloha. My name is Gene Corpus. I'm number 3628, and I'm in strong support of SB1. I would like to make a few points. Hawaii should pass this bill because of its history of aloha for its diverse residents through support of labor unions, employment health care law, equal rights amendment, and non-discrimination clauses on the basis American Catholic man and president of Dignity Honolulu, a chapter of Dignity USA, an organization for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgendered Catholics. Sister Joan Chatfield, a Mary Noel nun, wrote an op-ed piece in the Honolulu Star Bulletin stating, as a social justice advocate, I believe wholeheartedly that it is wrong to discriminate against a person for something that is an unchangeable part of who they are and how God made them. That is why I believe it is time for Hawaii to allow marriage for gay and lesbian couples. I've been with my life partner Dale for over 22 years. He has Parkinson's disease and has other medical issues which have led to 911 calls and hospitalizations. When in the emergency room at Straub, the person at the desk asked if we were married because that would entitle me to sign various forms related to his treatment. Since we were not married, he had to get Dale to sign the forms. Fortunately, he was lucid enough to sign the forms. When he was hospitalized, the staff treated me as if we were married, and when I would visit him in the hospital. It would be great to be actually married and gain the rights and responsibilities of marriage in Hawaii. Again, I urge you to support SB1 on marriage equality for the people of Hawaii. Mahalo for listening.
Thank you. Next, please come up.
Hello, my name is Roy Noda. My number is 3661. There are Chair Luke and distinguished members of both House committees, Judiciary and Finance. Thank you for your patience in sitting through the long hours of testimony, for providing me the opportunity to testify. I'm writing to voice my strong opposition to Bill SB1. I'm a husband to a very beautiful wife, a father of 8 and grandfather of 5. Very concerned of SB1 for the future of my children and grandchildren due to the negative impact on education, due to the lack of clarity on opting out, and also the infringement of my First Amendment rights. I've been hearing testimonies from the AG, Tax Department, and others, and it's very obvious that there are many areas in the bill that are flawed and requires more discussion and clarity. For example, religious exemptions are not clear and vague for public accommodations. Don't leave it to the courts to define that. I'm asking you to allow the people of Hawaii to decide on the issue of marriage, as I believe the legislature is going against the will of the people. I support equality for all rights and conscience of for religious freedom, which I ask you to respect as our elected leaders. I heard and observed much turmoil, confusion, unanswered questions throughout the session, and I ask that this bill be given the due process during the regular session where it can be properly vetted and examined as all other bills. 1 week is not enough. There's too much at stake here for such a substantial bill as this that'll impact a lot of lives. I propose that a constitutional amendment would be proposed that should address the same-sex marriage and allow for ample public input. So I urge you to please vote no, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to testify. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Good afternoon, honorable chairs and committee members. I'd first like to say thank you for your service. My name is Alyssa Yee, number 3705, and I'm testifying in opposition of SB1. This testimony was written as a spoken word. I'm 17 years old, and I've come to the realization that this bill will heavily affect my future and the future of generations. See, I was raised in a society where homosexuality is presented as normal, presented as an acceptable thing. Surrounded by friends who support SB1, as well as homosexual friends who are verbally abused and labeled. I love and accept them and despise the mistreatment that they endure. However, I cannot approve of their lifestyles or neglect everything that I stand for. See, I believe in traditional marriage and that Hawaii can't just change the standards that we've lived by to accommodate a societal phase. Because it doesn't seem to make sense to me that marriage can be redefined, that we can bend social standards for convenience or for passion, or blur moral lines, In regard to SB1, I've noted its exemptions, that it protects ministers and churches, but that it also fails to mention that my individual rights as a private citizen of faith are exposed. Where's the safeguard to religious freedom that my First Amendment rights propose? If SB1 is passed and I continue to express my religious convictions, could I be on the rights guaranteed in the Constitution, placing state law above federal law, where merely speaking my conscience could eventually call for retribution? Lastly, SB1, bearing such magnitude on each citizen, I think it should be discussed in regular session where it can be given the proper amount of time and the proper amount of attention. And here is where I implore you to let the people vote, because this bill will affect the state, education, and our families in ways that we don't even know. So I thank you for your time and for your service and court consideration. Please let the people decide. It's our right and obligation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll take one more and we'll go to questions.
Hi, I'm Glenn Yamada. I'm a registered voter and I'm number 3626. I speak in strong opposition to Senate Bill 1 because of numerous ambiguities in the bill. But because of time constraints, I will focus on just one. I believe there needs to be a clear definition of what for-profit means. I belong to a Oahu church that does not solemnize marriage ceremonies for profit, but the church has a preschool, and although the church does not currently rent out a portion of its facility, it did so to an educational tutoring business years ago. From the IRS standpoint, the church comes under Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code, meaning that the church and the preschool are tax exempt and therefore pay no federal or state income tax. But the church was subject to an unrelated business income tax as well as the general excise tax, which is why we terminated the rental of the church facility. So I'm a little confused. Under Senate Bill 1, if the church decided to resume renting out a portion of its facility, would the church be considered for-profit? Because the church would be paying the unrelated business income tax and the general excise tax, or nonprofit because it is tax exempt for IRS purposes. Since I have a little more time, I'm going to add one more thing. I was told this morning, under 1 Kings chapter 3 from the Bible, King Solomon was known as the wisest person in the world, but he wasn't always the wisest. He asked God for wisdom. So God granted him a wise and discerning heart. Not mind, heart. And I pray that God will give you a wise and discerning heart. Thank you.
Thank you, members. We'll take questions. Representative Lowen.
Is Greg Lopez here? Is number 3640?
That's it.
Thank you. And thank you, Chair. You brought up something that we've heard from a lot of different people over the past few days. You mentioned, well, you called it the law of averages, and you mentioned the KITV poll, and by that, I assume you mean that we should consider the ratio of people who voted on that or who have come out to testify in person as a reflection of the population as a whole. Is that correct?
Well, whoever could actually see the poll. If you click on the poll, it does say for entertainment purposes only. So that's their disclaimer.
Right. I was going to actually
so
ask
that-
if you were aware of that disclaimer.
Yes.
Do you know, are you familiar with sort of statistics, what statistics are?
I generally do, and I understand that the poll may not be accurate, but even if it was off by 30%, it's still overwhelming 83% to whatever it was, 20%, something like that.
Do you know in the field of statistics, like what selection bias is or volunteer response bias?
I'm sorry, those are big words. I don't understand too
all
much
right.
big words. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Representative McDermott.
Yes, Mr. Locatelli, could you come up? You teased us earlier with your solution to this dilemma before us, so we're all waiting with bated breath. But you try and be concise and summarize, but you alluded to some book you're writing, and so about 90 seconds to give us an answer.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity. And that's the thing. My name alone, Giuseppe Locatelli, takes up a lot of my testimony. So,
I rather you not take that long, and then
So-
since you want to declare a conflict.
yes. I think one of the things we really need to look at is right now there's a crisis in the United States with regard to the institution of marriage. We need to ask get involved with marriage. And I believe it can be very strongly argued, that the original intent of the United States Constitution was never to legislate marriage. So where the states got involved more fully was we could really see that after the Civil War. And it had to do with Reconstruction, politics, the southern states wanted control over marriage because they didn't want blacks marrying whites. So if we start to walk ourselves through the history of this, the intent of benefits, because that seems like that's a big subject here, was for basically what we call the nuclear family. But look at our divorce rate today. And there are a lot of single-parent families, out of wedlock births and whatnot. And so, if we're talking about equality, because I hear equality and discrimination here, those words out there, how about the person, regardless of sexual orientation, okay? How about the person who cannot find that significant other? Why are they being discriminated and not getting the same benefits as married couples? So I think, my advice would be vote no on this bill, but if we really want to be bold and do something Hawaiian style, let's take the states out of marriage. Let's try to convince our congressional delegation at the federal level to get the government out of marriage at the federal level. I know it's very bold, but our country has done bold policies before. We've even overturned a constitutional amendment. So that's my advice to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Ward.
Mr. Locatelli, could you please
Okay,
return?
you come back.
Mr. Locatelli, it's not your name that I'm going to ask you about. Have you heard of Hawaii Family Advocates?
Yes, I have.
Did they conduct a stratified random sample poll
regarding
the letting the people decide versus letting the people here at this particular legislature decide?
Yes, they did.
And what were the results?
Well, it was 2-1. It was 2 Democrats to 1 Republican, politically speaking. And it was 70% of the people in that poll, out of 250 people polled, voted for let the people decide.
And was that a free poll, or did it cost any money?
I'm not sure of the cost, but I know it did cost money.
I think it was around $10,000. So
It sounds like you know more than him, so you can tell us
I'm
later.
only using what my colleague did earlier to discredit the KIT. Does the KITV poll mirror then the results of this paid-for, random, stratified sample poll, which Hawaii Family Advocates did?
Approximately 10%.
10% difference.
So it was 80%, I believe, to what that were for let the people decide, opposed to 18% that wanted the lawmakers to decide.
Thank you, Mr. Lucatelli. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Representative Onishi?
Yes. You mentioned earlier about Hawaii being bold and maybe taking this issue of marriage away from the secular world and make it a benefit for everybody in terms of looking at whether you're single or married or whatever and make it a federal issue. In your opinion, how long would that take?
I'm not saying it would be easy, and I'm not saying it would be quick, but you know, it took over 100 years to get ourselves into this mess.
So realizing that people here have been waiting for over 15 years or 20 years to address the issue of equality, you would suggest that we wait longer?
Well, I suggested that's a better move in a better direction of equality.
I understand that, yeah, but it's a different form of equality,
And I
right?
don't
It's
think it'll take
equality
100
for
years.
everyone versus people who are in committed.
Well, the thing is if we want to look at the argument, right, of separation of church and state, it isn't. I mean, for example, I'm Catholic. If I want to marry a woman, I have to get a license through the state first, and then get married in my church. Isn't that a conflict of separation of church and state?
Well, you don't have to get married in the church. You could
Well,
get
I'm
married
Catholic.
civilly.
I'm Catholic.
So are you maybe recommending that we should take
I mean, what I'm saying, I'm sorry.
approach in Japan where it is just a license that you're married?
Well, what I'm saying is people could have the option to get a civil union contract, whether they're married in a Catholic church or not, if they want that contract for legal purposes. But they should have the option not to have it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Representative Carroll?
Thank you, Chair. I actually have a question for another person.
Okay. Representative Suji, you had questions for this person? Okay, somebody else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Carroll, please go ahead.
And thank you for the opportunity.
Is Pastor Mike Kai still here? No?
Okay, we'll ask the Sergeant at Arms to go look, check real quick. Otherwise, Representative Suji?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Is Lauren Arimoto, Ms. Lauren Arimoto, still here? The public school educator.
And she's coming down.
Thank you very much. Thank you for stopping by and testifying, Ms. Arimoto. You've been in the education system for about 30 years or thereabouts.
Yes, that's correct.
One of the comments you made is that really in defense of equality, you're concerned about equality. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm going to start again. In defense of equality, first of all, you're opposed to SB1, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and you've been an educator for about 30 years in our education system. And as far as equality and the rights of others, as it pertains to this legislation, you feel as that the rights are being trampled on. And in the end, because you're an educator, I take great interest in your comments that ultimately, in the end, it's our children who are going to be the losers. Concerning children of today's education and our future, becoming future leaders, can you expand further when you say our children will eventually be the losers?
Well, I believe that because when Governor Abercrombie mentioned about educational policy, he said that the law of the land will be reflected in our policy. So what I'm concerned about is that if that is true and it will be reflected on whatever the law is, if this law is passed, then some of that starts to seep into what happens in the classroom. And so again, if that is true, then will we have the right to opt out if we do not believe what we are teaching in the name of equality? So if we're saying we must be equal and teach all ways of life, all points of view, all ways of marriage, then, and if we don't believe that, then can we opt out, or can our children opt out of that? And will there be repercussions for us if we opt out?
Is marriage equality being addressed or part of the education curriculum right now in the public education system? And if so, how do you feel about the marriage equality program that's being administered in the education program right now?
I'm not really sure what you're speaking about in our curriculum, but what I was referring to is what could happen if the policy, if what Governor Abercrombie is mentioning is if it's going to be reflected in the law. If the Board of Ed policy reflects some of the things that we have heard that possibly could happen, is we would, in the name of equality, we would have to do certain things and teach certain things. Our curriculum may be dictated to us, possibly, because we want to make sure there's equality. But again, if we don't believe in that as educators, or even if my children or grandchildren are subject to that, and we don't want them to be part of that, then can we actually opt out? Or, that's the kind of questions that I would have about this bill passing, because again, the ramifications are bigger than what we know right now. So we would really want time to study all of that ramifications before we pass it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Last call for Pastor Kai. I think they were able to locate him. I'm sorry, Representative Carroll. Thank you. Any other questions? Representative Onishi.
Mrs. Arimoto, if you could please come back.
Well, I believe that marriage is between a man and a woman.
No, homosexuality, not about same-sex marriage.
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
Do you believe that homosexuality is okay, or is it not okay?
If it's okay?
Yes.
Well, I believe also that what the Word of God says. I mean, I believe that if that's what you're asking.
Okay, and what is that regarding homosexuality?
Well, I guess my question back to you is, in regards to my testimony, my belief is my belief.
I understand. Okay, well, let me move forward then. The reason I'm asking that is because you said that you teach equality to all, but if you don't believe in something, you just said that you felt it was your right to have to opt out.
No, that's not exactly what I'm saying. What I was saying was, because when we pass a law that says, this is the law of the land, a lot of times what the law of the land is, it could possibly be reflected in what happens in the classroom. So, for example, if we are going to have sex education and we have to teach about certain ways of sex education for kids. I mean, what is normal? What is the law of the land? If I, as an educator, am not comfortable with all of that, can I say, because of what I believe and what I stand for, I really would not feel comfortable teaching that? Because the policy may reflect the law, will I have that chance to opt out? Is my right to believe in what I believe, is that going to be protected if we pass something like this? That's my concern. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, yeah, and I understand that. And so you mentioned in your initial testimony that you teach equality for all.
Well, I'm saying the curriculum
which
does.
includes the acceptance of gay people. right?
That's not exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying in the curriculum when we teach, about we call it the general learner outcomes, is that we respect everyone and that we need to treat other people the way we want to be treated.
Okay.
Okay.
The second thing is you spoke about democracy and the process. And I had asked another teacher the same question in regards to what you teach your children about the issues that were related to the women's right to vote, the equality for all races, the issue with World War II and the internment of Japanese, and in regards to the public sentiment versus laws that were created to protect the minorities or to give the minorities equal rights. What do you teach in regards to that?
In our curriculum, you mean?
Yeah, in your curriculum or what you're required to teach about those subjects or that subject matter.
Well, I'm not a teacher of social studies, but they usually teach whatever the publishers have after DOE has actually examined if that curriculum or the schools have chosen that textbook. It usually tries to reflect both sides. So
Okay.
the both sides of any kind of issue, that's what the textbook usually does try to teach.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Chair.
Representative Hashem?
How do you deal with evolution versus creation in the classroom and teaching?
Well, again, I don't teach. I'm actually, I'm part of what I do is I teach professional development to teachers.
So how
I'm
does
a
the
professional
DOE handle
developer.
it then?
Excuse
How
me?
does the DOE handle it?
From what I understand is if you're gonna present one side, you must present the other side. So there's both sides presented.
So you don't know, is your answer?
In the textbooks, when I was in the classroom, when we did have textbooks that presented, say, something about the Ten Commandments or Moses, there was also the other side needed to be presented as well. So there was the equity in both views, is what I understand. But I am not able to speak to what's in the curriculum, if that's what you're asking.
Okay.
The current curriculum.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Chair.
Anybody else? Representative McDermott?
I'm a friendly witness, or you're a friendly witness.
I'm hoping so, yes.
The law of the land, this behavior, which folks like you and I believe is a choice, will have to be treated the same as a benign genetic characteristic, like being Japanese, like being Haole, like being Samoan. So right now, these textbooks that we have for particularly the younger kids show to quote a term that's in vogue, the rainbow of our ethnicities in these textbooks. They have a mom and a dad, correct? I use Dick and Jane. We don't use those anymore, but, see Dick run. And if the law is passed, the absence, would you agree, ma'am, that the absence of portraying homosexual couples in these books would create an environment where someone could say, hey, we're not showing diversity or the wide array of Hawaii's families, and they will immediately put those in the books. And would you agree that your concern is that we'll be inculcating the youth?
Well, I think, I'm not really exactly sure what your question is asking, but I think...
That was more of a speech, but nevertheless. Are you concerned that your personal beliefs, you view this differently than you view a benign genetic characteristic such as race as a benign genetic characteristic? It is what it is. Where you believe a chosen behavior is different than a benign genetic characteristic. And you're going to be taught, you're going to be forced to teach that behaviors are the same as a benign genetic characteristic, when, as Colin Powell said, they're not.
Again, I'm going to just have to go back to the concern that I had, that I stated. That it is really about, I'm worried about our rights as educators and as parents. What you're stating is something that is a hypothetical. I'm afraid I can't really speak to that.
Okay. All right. Okay, any other questions? Otherwise, let's move on to the next set of testifiers. Representative Onishi.
Sorry, Chair, but I have one quick question for Mr. Esmond. Are you still here?
Yeah, he's coming down.
Okay, while you're coming up, let me ask you the question. You mentioned towards the end of your testimony about the testimony of Mr. Aquino in regards to the study that was done, and I was going to ask some questions regarding that study myself, but he wasn't available. So could you expound on what you were going to say about that study?
I'm anything but an expert on the study, and I've only read a little bit about it. I'm going to say what I recall, and I hope that I'm correct. But the sample group of the study was to find adult people whose parents, male and female parents, either one of them had ever engaged in a sexual act with someone of the same sex. It had absolutely nothing to do with growing up in a same-sex household. It was completely different. So actually, because of this situation, they were interviewing a whole bunch of adults who grew up in broken households, which has really nothing to do with the topic.
Okay. Some more? Okay, any other questions? Otherwise, we're going to move to the next set of testifiers.
Madam
Thank
Chair,
you.
you're talking about the last tranche questions, right?
Last
It
one.
was Mr. Roy Noda. May I ask him a question?
Go ahead.
Mr. Noda, you had said that you had 8 children and you were kind of like Father Bear coming to their defense. What are you afraid of if SB1 passes?
Wait, can you repeat that?
About the bear or about... Sorry.
Oh, can you...
this is the 30-hour plane ride that we are on now, and sometimes...
Okay, can you just repeat your question?
Of course. You appeared very protective of your family. You said you had 8 children.
Yes.
And the question, very simply, is what are you afraid of if SB1 passes?
Well, I'm concerned about what I'll be forced to teach, or also what my kids will be exposed to, especially my grandkids. In a public school setting, I don't want them exposed to certain education because of my moral values. So I want the right to opt out.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Otherwise, I want to move on to the next set of testifiers.
Good afternoon, Chair Luke, Chair Rhodes, wherever you are, and esteemed committee members. My name is Dennis Valancourt. My number is 3643. I stand by my submitted written testimony in opposition of SB1 and will now depart from these prepared comments to offer additional input. During the 15 years I spent in the D.C. area, I functioned in the capacity as a senior policy analyst and management analyst and had a hand in crafting legally sufficient language that clearly and accurately captured the intent of policy or legislation. In one instance, we also took 30 days to get the language right in only one paragraph so that it would pass all challenges. Now, we've heard testimony and answers to questions you posed to our AG, and numerous of his I don't knows were especially telling. As the lead person in our state who has the ultimate responsibility for enforcing the laws of this state, this lack of knowledge is especially troubling. One of the things that does exist in the Congress of the United States is the companion, quote, intent of the Congress as a part of legislation. We have some of that language in this bill. We also heard from Senator Sakamoto state that the intent of the Judiciary Committee on a previously enacted constitutional amendment that defines marriage as between one man and one woman. This seems to have fallen by the wayside. That said, as written, my questions to this panel, this audacious panel, is what are the real and definable and articulated consequences More importantly, what are the unintended consequences should this law pass as written? In reading through this bill, there needs to be a lot of work done to bring it up to speed so that it passes those musters. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, please come up.
Chair Luke, Chair Rhodes, excuse me, Vice Chairs and esteemed members of the House Judicial and Finance Committee. My name is Wayne Shimogawa. I'm number 3677. I strongly oppose SB1. I am a registered voter, born and raised here in Hawaii, living in Aiea for almost all my life. My wife and I have 2 adult sons who also live here on Oahu. These last couple of days really opened up my eyes and my heart. It gave me an opportunity to reassess and test my convictions, repencil my testimony, to observe and befriend some wonderful people on both sides of this issue. I got to see tears and hear heartfelt testimonies. I also got to hear the exchanges of our Attorney General, which, by the way, deeply concerned me. What touched me the most was the thousands upon thousands of people, not only here but on each island, that rallied together amidst the backdrop of honking horns and a united cry, "Let the people decide." The testimonies that came before you clearly spoke of a majority who not only opposed the special session, but vehemently disagrees with this bill's content and merit. Joint committee members, this bill is not ready. It is clearly too complex, too controversial, and too divisive to be processed in such a short time. The process can't be hurried with so many unanswered questions and concerns, which in many cases look to the courts to flesh out. It would not only be a travesty for this bill to turn into law, but lend an air to impropriety and distrust towards many of the leaders we, the people, put into office. Time, genuine collaboration and work is needed. This is not about a win on one side and a loss on the other, but trying to bring unity and accord rather than disharmony to a state that has long been cherished as the Aloha State. Respectfully, I ask you to vote no on this bill. Thankfully, God has given us House members that I believe genuinely listens to the people. May God now give this joint committee the wisdom and hindsight to do what is right and truly let the people decide. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up.
Hello, my name is Heavenly Asato. My number is 3684, and I'm strongly opposed against this bill. Reason being is because I understand that the federal government has issued a few of these things of like funding and also allowing, I'm sure you know, and that it really doesn't say that all states need to participate, so it doesn't mean Hawaii needs to. I know there's funds and other things that are involved. I understand that, but it doesn't specifically say even talked to I've talked to one person up on Monday about this issue, and she kind of discriminated against my age and said that I don't know much. And I understand that they say there's discrimination against this and then of their life's choice. But there's many other discriminations. Like, I can't help that it's my age. I can't help that it's my race. I can't help that it's, you know, my sexuality. And, you know, really, that's not the point. That's how we were given. That's how we came about. And honestly, Abercrombie stated that in his inaugural speech that united we will move forward. How is this united if we are not given the chance to vote? How are we united if we are not given the chance to voice our opinions? He says united, the AINA will move forward. Where is the AINA moving forward in this? And you know, I too have gone through many people, accusations that I'm homosexual because of the way I dress. But you know what? I take a stand, and you know what? I am not, because I know who I am. They don't. And I am strongly opposed. And you know what? I've heard that some people have been mocking my speeches in the last one, and there have been people going against little children saying 8-year-olds, that we're here in the system. That's not right. So just strongly, I ask you, oppose this bill. Thank you.
Next, please come up.
Hello, my name is Eliza Browning, and my number is 3730. My grandfather is the retired Bishop Edmund Browning of the Episcopalian Church. It was through him that I learned that in the church, there are no outcasts. This belief causes me to be in strong support of SB1. I am a third-year law student at the William S. Richardson School of Law. I believe that the right to marry the person of your choice is a fundamental human right. The opposition to this bill is strikingly similar to the arguments used to oppose interracial marriage. Those arguments are now seen as a shameful chapter in American history. I strongly urge you to be on the right side of history, the side of equality. The human and civil rights of everyone simply cannot be decided by the majority of the population. This is because we know that sometimes the majority of the population is wrong. It is wrong to have segregated schools. It is wrong to forbid interracial marriage. And it is wrong to not allow same-sex marriage. You really have an amazing opportunity this week, an opportunity to actually change the lives of so many people. Same-sex couples will finally achieve formal equality, and homophobic members of our community might realize that their fears are unsubstantiated, which is a wonderful thing to realize. I urge you from the bottom of my heart to pass this bill. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up, please come up.
Aloha, Honorable Chairman and wonderful committee. My name is Kathy Kama'u, and my number is 3787. I strongly oppose this bill. I'm grateful that you are listening to us. I was one of the only 400 that were listened to in the Senate. How you vote will let us know if you actually heard us. The testimonies have been overwhelmingly against SB1. The 1998 constitutional amendment has been brought up often because of its significance. The legislature shall have the power to reserve marriage for opposite-sex couples. We hear the reason for ignoring this amendment is because times have changed. It's 15 years since then and society has changed. But as I was studying this bill, and I'm just a layman, and the related documents, I found something that I wanted you to remind you about. 2 years ago, when enacting the Civil Unions Bill, in the findings 572C-2, the findings state, the legislature finds that the people of Hawaii choose to preserve the tradition of marriage as a unique social institution based upon the committed union of one man and one woman. That was 2 years ago. What has changed in the past 2 years? This is a petition of 4,200 plus signatures of people who oppose this bill. It was collected just in 10 days. The people still feel the same way. I attended your hearing Wednesday. Their problem in our house. I say get rid of this problem. Get rid of SB1. If you choose to ignore the voice of the people and not let them decide, at the least, please consider other bills such as HB 6. At least it has wording that adds protection to religious freedom. Many thousands of people have gone out of their comfort zone. They have done things they haven't done before. They will remember this time.
Thank you. Next up, please come up.
Aloha kako. Thank you, Chair Rhodes and Chair Luke. You folks have been here so long, and it's just been awesome that you're listening to all of us. And I feel somewhat vindicated since I was rejected from speaking to the Senate on Monday. My number is 3789. My name is Wailana Kama'u. I'm born of goodly parents. My father, Howard, my mother, Ho'akale, raised me well in a house of love that I cherish the memories there. My father was a fisherman. My mother was a kumahula. She was the chanter for my grandaunt, Iolani Luahini, whose pictures are found on many of your walls here in this building. I come from a very large family, and we're spread out from Papakolea, Waimanalo, Nanakuli, to include on all the other islands. But I'm here to speak of my own immediate family and my 13 mu'upunas and my 5 children. I totally disagree with the handling of this important issue in this forum as a special session. Number 2, I disagree and oppose SB1 for the following reasons. Number 1, I believe marriage to be between a man and a woman is ordained of God, and that the family made up of a man, male man, and a female woman and their children is the core fabric of society and the structure of God's plan. SB1 does not sufficiently support basically that position. It also does not provide adequate language for the protection of religious rights. Now, they have some things in there, but they don't cover it. And as a Christian and as a lay leader, these things are important. I also say, let the people decide.
Thank you. Next up, please come up.
Hello, my number is 3715. My name is Emily Vincent. I'm 29 years old. I have the privilege of working at Castle High School. Good morning, I think, maybe afternoon. I'm not sure. There are no windows in this room. I submitted a written testimony online. I lost it. I'm not sure where, so this is going to kind of be more of a talk story format. I just wanted to stand in opposition to this session. I'm offended, and I hope at this point you are too, that anyone could possibly expect you to extensively and exhaustively debate every potential outcome of this legislation. There's not enough time. It is too big of an issue. That being said, my heart went out to the young man that spoke of the farmer, the gay farmer. He said that he wanted to get married in his 30s. I too want to get married in my 30s. We obviously have different obstacles facing us, but my heart went out to that young man. He cried. My heart goes out to the pastors that are up here in fear for their churches and their congregation. SB1 is going to affect so many facets of our society: education, divorce rate, children. I had more examples. Businesses, yeah, businesses and clergy. Tell me how in the United States of America that the new sacrifice of being a business owner or of simply being employed is that your First Amendment right stops at the door because someone else's right to have a gay wedding cake supersedes your right to practice your business as a Christian. It doesn't make any sense. You guys cannot be expected to make this decision. We are continually losing faith in our federal government. Are we now to lose faith in you? If you pass this through, that is what will happen. And I guarantee you, come next election, your services will no longer be needed for the people of the state of Hawaii. Thank you guys so much for listening. Amen.
Okay, next up.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and the committee members. My name is Craig Gomes, number 3618. Hawaii has been our family's home for 7 generations. I am strongly opposed to SB1. Nature teaches us that males mate with females. It is therefore unnatural for the opposite sex to mate. Unnatural meaning inconsistent with nature. We must not make a law that punishes people for saying the act of homosexuality is against nature and nature's God, or for refusing to participate in the celebration or acceptance that an unnatural union is natural. The U.S. Supreme Court's June 23rd decision left states free to define marriage as a union between a man and a woman, one man and one woman. Section 23 of our state's constitution demands that lawmakers can only define marriage as between opposite-sex couples. This bill, therefore, is unconstitutional in Hawaii. If you pass SB1 as written, you essentially criminalize those that believe the self-evident truth that homosexuality is an unnatural act. All those who exercise their free speech civil rights and religious civil rights must be protected from harm, harassment, and punishment simply for stating or acting on the truths mentioned above. It is one thing for a restaurant to have to serve 2 males at a table. It is quite another thing to force that restaurant, by the heavy hand of government, to participate in the celebration of those 2 males' unnatural union. If you decide to pass a bill making marriage mean something that it has never meant in ages past, please provide protection for those that simply believe the obvious about homosexuality and those that have faith in God and want to follow and proclaim His teachings. The civil rights of free speech and the free exercise of religion must not be sacrificed for the fleeting whims of recent public opinion, especially when that whim is contrary to the laws of nature and nature's God. Thousands of years of human history and the state's constitution defining marriage between one man and one woman. May God richly bless, protect, and give you wisdom as you make laws for our state that helps and protects our citizens and our society. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up.
Thank you. Aloha. My name is Hitomi Nakaoka, and I'm a registered voter in the state of Hawaii. My number is 3718. I thank all of you for the opportunity to testify today. I feel that it is crucial that all are given an opportunity to voice their stand, and more importantly, for all of those voices to be heard. I normally would shy away from speaking out in public like this, but feel so strongly compelled that I feel compelled to do so. I speak for the sake of my family, my son, my future grandchildren, and generations to come. I may not be eloquent with my words, but have faith that you will hear the voice of my heart. I am here today to voice my strong opposition to SB1. I believe in traditional marriage, not only because of my faith, but because that is how I was raised by my Buddhist parents and the generations that came before them. I am now a follower of Jesus Christ, which describes who I am and not just what I do on Sundays. And like being a mother, a daughter, or a sister, I am a follower of Christ in every aspect of my life 24/7. I am no legal expert, but feel that this bill may have effects on my right to express my religious freedoms. More than that, my concern is how this bill will affect all of us here in Hawaii in every aspect of society. The decision made at this time will not only affect us, but will impact generations to come. It has the potential to forever change our customs, cultures, and traditions that we hold dear. I also believe in democracy and the democratic process, and respectfully ask that this issue of such great magnitude be given due process in the regular session. Lastly, I believe in all of you. You have been elected into your positions for such a time as this. You hold in your hands the power and authority given to you by the people to uphold the integrity and values of
Good afternoon. My name is Joanna Chinen, number 3666. Thank you so much for this opportunity to stand before you today, as well as for your service and dedication to our state. I was born and raised here in Honolulu. I'm 31 years old. I now reside in Kaneohe. I have been an active voter since I was 18, and I stand in opposition to Senate Bill 1. Senate Bill 1 discriminates against certain people of faith, as well as others who do not agree with same-sex marriage. The religious exemptions provided in the bill are simply not adequate. I work for a church, but I'm not a member of the clergy. If I happen to be the person to tell an LGBT couple that our pastors would not be able to perform their marriage ceremony, would I be protected from any potential lawsuit should the bill pass as it is written? You've heard from many non-clergy members who feel it would violate their faith to provide services for a marriage ceremony between two people of the same sex. Does this bill ensure that all people of faith will be able to continue to live without compromising their faith? Does this bill, as it is written, ensure that anyone, regardless of their faith or not, who does not agree with the same-sex marriage will be protected not only in regards to marriage ceremonies and weddings, but in all aspects that the passing of this bill would open the doors to? From what I've been reading about Canada, Sweden, and Great Britain, there seems to be a direct correlation between the legalization of same-sex marriage and increased religious discrimination, despite constitutional protections. Will it be only a matter of time when certain civil rights agendas are given blatant favoritism over religious freedoms? Is this why same-sex marriage laws have consistently failed to include adequate religious protection? There simply hasn't been enough time to give the ramifications of this bill the attention they deserve. Please vote no on SB1 and instead give all of the people of Hawaii the chance to consider how it will impact us. Please let us decide. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up.
My name is Vanessa Ito. My number is 3691. I'm a resident of Honolulu, a licensed social worker here in the state of Hawaii, a Christian, and a mother. And my husband and I could not be in stronger support of Senate Bill 1. As a child, I was fortunate to have deeply supportive parents who always reminded me that their love for me was completely unconditional and in turn taught me about respecting, loving, and including all people. For much of my professional life, I've worked with supporting college students with disabilities. And I can tell you, I know what it's like to walk into a room. I have a mother who is completely blind, and I know what it's like to walk into a room and everybody's judging you on one characteristic, even though there are probably 100 more appropriate characteristics to really define a person. And I would say that that's one truth for all of us here. None of us want to be defined by one singular characteristic. They're hurtful labels, they're stereotypes, and truly, we are all much better defined by our passions and by our gifts and our profound abilities. So understandably, no one characteristic should ever be viewed to define us. Yet in this emotional debate, I see opposers of this bill cleaving to the idea that there are some people who are not worthy, not deserving enough, and essentially are not respected enough to have equal access to a right afforded to the rest of us because they are one characteristic, because they're gay. We are all deserving, if simply willing, to sign up for the joys and challenges of marriage, the ultimate expression of commitment to the person or to the people that we love. Please extend this right to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, please come up.
I'm Easter Almuena. My number is 3648. Honorable Chairs, Rhodes and Luke, and members of the committee, I strongly oppose SB1. I strongly believe that marriage should not be redefined because God, who is the author of marriage, already defined it for us. He designed it for a man and a woman. I believe that when a man and a woman who decide to come together in marriage, divine will takes place, and that it also follows a natural order. Man and woman procreate, bear, I stand here for my husband, to whom I have been married for 26 years, and for our children who also believe in the sanctity of marriage. This is also for my friends, young mothers mostly, who could not be here because they have to take care of their keikis. They too believe in the sanctity of marriage. This is for my old mechanic and friend, for a few more individuals who could not be here, some whom I do not know and whom I met in public places, whom I randomly asked what they thought of SB1, and who said they still believe in traditional marriage. We do speak of equality so much these days. Allow everyone then to have an equal share of equality by bringing SB1 into a vote. Let the people decide. Please vote no to SB1. Mahalo. And thank you for your service.
Next, please come up.
My name is Jody Chowan. This is my husband, Dr. Brent Chowan. We'll be splitting the 2 minutes. My number is 3647. We are the parents of 5 children who have been students and graduates of Kahuku High School. We are both employed currently at BYU Hawaii, though the views that we will express today are our own views. I first want to say thank you to this committee. Thank you for doing the work that the other governing bodies were not willing to do. I think as much as people have strong feelings for and against this bill, there is an equal part that is speaking out against the process. Had there been process prior to this bill being presented to the public less than 6 days ago, I think a lot of issues could have been addressed there. My testimony is just very briefly this. Please, I ask you to put intent and meaning into whatever measure you might consider. I am against this bill. I am for traditional marriage. But recognizing that we have groups with competing interests that you, as our governing body, are trying to accommodate, I ask that you consider language and put in meaning into the bill that will be clear and that we don't leave it to the courts to decide. My second request is that you ask for expert witnesses. Where are the voices of our state agencies? Where is the DOE, the BOE? Where is the head of tourism? Where are they? Their silence is deafening on this issue. And finally, I just want to say that religious freedom encompasses the right to practice religious belief without government constraint. As currently written, SB1 will infringe on our ability on our campus to do the things that we've been doing, to believe what we've been believing. We will be illegal in the sight of the law.
Thank you. I'd just like to say that as a teacher educator, one of the concerns that's been raised consistently is what is the impact on the curriculum? Not just what is taught, but when it's taught, where it's taught, to whom it's taught. These are questions that need to be answered. And so I'm here speaking as one who works with future teachers in Hawaii to help get clarification. And it is regretful that some of the offices who could answer those questions are not here to help us in our pursuit of that answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, please come up.
Aloha keakua, God is love. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
Can you
and to
state
the
your...
republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and 668, Donna Yoshimori.
Okay.
Sorry about that. One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. What does indivisible mean? It means incapable of undergoing division, i.e. SB1, which has already caused much division in our Aloha state. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory. Unless the Lord builds the house, its builders labor in vain. Unless the Lord watches over the city, the watchmen stand guard in vain. Psalm 127:1. Governor, Chair Rhodes, Chair Luke, and I wish Chair Rhodes was here because he's my representative, and all the representatives. You are elected to represent the people of Hawaii and not your personal motives and agenda. You hear the cry of the people of Hawaii, the kama'aina of Hawaii. Are you listening? Search your heart for the truth, and the truth will set you free. John 8:32. Are we just going through the motions here? Or are you actually truly listening to the majority of the kama'aina, people of Hawaii nei, who elected you into office and could easily elect you out? May the Lord soften your hearts and grant you wisdom for our islands. In Jesus' matchless name I pray. Amen. Thank you.
Okay, next up.
Aloha kako.
Aloha.
I am a Hawaiian. I'm 71 years old. Oh, my number is 3663. Excuse me. I am filled with so much compassion for our children, our kapuna. They are the ones that are going to suffer in this land of aloha. I am a Christian and I believe in God's values. He has set them so we will have peace, harmony, and our society will continue. But if you let this bill pass, I'm afraid the deterioration of our country will come to pass. My roots go way back, all the way to Alaska and Canada. My father is a haole. He came from Rochester, New York. My uncle served in the Civil War, and that's where my name comes from. He's buried in Gettysburg. So these values that we hold, that our founding father put together, is the foundation that would make our country strong. But we have forsaken that. We have taken it out of our schools and out of our court system. You, our representatives, use your brains. You are educated. Get yourself educated and find out what the ramifications that this will have. This will have a devastating thing on our children. Right now, my family is preparing to celebrate a new birth. We're having a baby shower. This is my youngest son's first child. And I really cry out, you guys, do not pass this bill. Aloha.
Thank you. Next up.
Number 3784. My name is Aimee Pang from District 21. Good afternoon. I strongly oppose Senate Bill 1 of this special session. I support equal rights and benefits to all individuals and their relationships in keeping with constitutional due process of law, however, not by an arbitrary, confusing, and unfair legislative act that redefines marriage. It is the task of government to channel the gay rights movement, as it has done with other movements, into positive, constructive directions for the overall good of the populace, without destroying the meaning of marriage. When I read SB1, I see red flags of destructiveness. The bill requires that the words man and woman are crossed out from existing statutes in order to assert that gender be disregarded. On pages 12 to 13, there's a huge red flag. The findings that state to an end as described in the first 2 pages of the bill. And the end desired is the end of discrimination. So it seems steps should be taken to the amendment. Steps should be taken for the amendment of such federal law to extend certain benefits to certificated same-sex couples, whatever such legal relationships are called, whether it is civil union or domestic partnership. Marriage has a long-established meaning as being a union ordained by God for one man and one woman. The relationship is perfectly grounded in nature and gives assurance for the continuity and sustainability of the human race. The marriage relationship is different from the relationship between a man and another man, between a woman and another woman. While these types of relationships have existed for a long time, their emergence into the open is no reason for taking unfair steps to destroy marriage as a legal union of a man and a woman. I conclude with a quote written by a wise man. The law abhors arbitrariness and demands clarity, precision, and fairness. Please vote no on Senate Bill 1.
Thank you. Next up, please.
Aloha, I am 3772. My name is Chris Ann Moore. I am an associate professor of philosophy at the University of Hawaii, Honolulu Community College. I come here in strong support of SB1. If you have, I am sorry, been in this room for days at a time, it might appear to you that the majority of the people on this island oppose this bill. Perhaps if you stood with me on the street corner holding a sign in favor of this bill and saw the honking horns, the shakas, the waves, the dancing, you might think the majority thinks otherwise and would be in favor of this bill. If you looked at straw polls that, as one of you pointed out, has a volunteerism basis, you might get another impression. The truth is, I do not know how a majority would go. But what I do know is it does not matter. This nation is founded on deductive logic applied to self-evident truths of equality, of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. All of the rights enumerated in our Constitution are derived from these basic truths. Our laws are designed to uphold and protect those rights. And except for very few exceptions, there is no logical reason to deny any American the rights afforded to all Americans, and logically deduced from liberty that includes choosing a marriage partner. It is true, these rights may be denied to an aggressive individual or nation that has forfeited those rights. And it must be done for protection of the innocent, criminal justice, or for a just act in a just war. Yes, they have on occasion been denied and may be denied.
Thank you very much. Okay, next up, please come up.
Hi, my name is Deborah Zalesnik, and my partner, Mary Wolkowski. Our number is 3696. I come in full support and very strong support of SB1. This is not about religion. This is really not about families. This is really not even about love. This is not about anything other than equal rights and protections and responsibilities afforded to all. I'm a small business owner. I've owned my business for 25 years here in Hawaii, and I manufacture made in Hawaii products. I'm also a farmer. I'm also a Jew. I'm Jewish. I'm not Christian. None of the testimony here really applies to me. Where does that come in?
I'm Mary Wolkowski. I'm an attorney, small business owner. I'm a farmer too. First of all, I'd ask the House to adopt the language of Senate Bill 1 with one exception. I disagree that Senate Bill 1 allows people who possess public licenses issued by the state to not perform all civil unions and all marriages. I believe that if the state issues the license, that it doesn't become a matter of choice. Not discriminate. I'd like to remind people who have told us all about how large their families are, how many children they are, how their future generations might be impacted by this legislation, to remember a certain undeniable truth, which is that the more children you have, the more likely those children are to actually emerge as gay or lesbian. Thanks.
Thanks very much. Next up.
My name is Johnny Lau. My sign number is 3680. Thank you for allowing me to speak here. Homosexual activists argue that same-sex marriage is a civil rights issue similar to the struggle for racial equality in the 1960s. I believe this is false. First of all, sexual behavior and race are essentially different realities. A man and a woman wanting to marry may be different in their characteristics. One may be black, Asian, white, one rich, the other poor, or one tall or the other short. None of these differences are insurmountable obstacles to marriage. Same-sex marriage opposes nature. Two individuals of the same sex, regardless of the race, wealth, stature, or fame, will never be able to marry because of an insurmountable biological impossibility. So my standing is I oppose SB1, and I'm for traditional marriage. I'm an IT professional. I've been living here for 28 years. And the most recently, I was working I'm working for healthcare, and we're working on enterprise data storage issue. I spent 1 week to come up with a solution with my teams, and then I presented it to my other teams, and I got pushed back because they said we need to carefully architect this because there's a lot at stake. This affects a lot of applications, and I agree with that. I like that. It's a good pushback because we need to be careful. If we spend so much time just to address enterprise data storage in IT, this is a huge issue for the society. This is not a small issue. A lot of people said they don't understand what the issue is. So a lot of people don't even know what's at stake. So I'm asking you to vote no to kill this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
My name is Mark Weber. My number is 3611. Aloha. Legislator, thank you so much for spending your weekend with us. Mahalo. My wife, my Jack Russell Terrier, and I live in Honolulu. My Jack Russell Terrier knows 24 tricks. She can surf, and she's faster than a gecko. And I wish you were here to put joy in your hearts like she does mine, but instead you get me, so I'm going to sing a song. I'm just kidding. Seriously. I am a Honolulu business owner. I've had up to 15 employees. My business is wedding photography. As Mr. Rhodes pointed out, there's been a lot of theology flying around the room, but we don't all believe in God, do we? 20 years ago, I lived in the house we all want. I had a spectacular view. I'd achieved all my dreams. I'd checked the last list on my checklist of life. At the same time, I was desperately empty. We've all got that checklist, fulfillment, happiness, peace. I'd checked the last box. I'd climbed the wrong mountain. I was desperately empty. So instead of checking another box on the checklist of life, I was going to check out. I cried out to God. I said, God, if you're there, I got to know. I lost everything I had in 3 days. I lost my house, my health, my car, my girl, my finances, my business, all of it. I couldn't even walk. God, if you're there, I've got to know. 20 years later, if I could share with you the joy, the peace, the fulfillment that he's put into my heart, if I could show you what he's proven to me, I would, but it's 2 minutes. I can't do that. But I can tell you he is real. He has proven himself.
Thank you very much. Okay, members, at this point, let's go ahead and ask questions of the last group of testifiers. Members, any questions?
Hi. Chair, I have some questions.
Representative McDermott.
Could I have the young lady, the attorney farmer? I forgot your first name. Thanks for coming and participating. I appreciate
My
it.
pleasure, and that's farmer attorney rather than former attorney.
No, that's what I said. Attorney farmer.
Tiny joke.
Now, you brought up a very, very salient point, a good point that I think, and that is if the state issues a marriage license and they don't require the pastor or whoever to execute that fully for everybody, they are actually party to discrimination. Isn't that your thoughts?
No, that's not my point at all. I believe that there is sufficient protection in Senate Bill 1 that religious members of our community, specifically clergy, pastors, priests, rabbis, etc., are definitely, under religious protections, empowered to not perform same-sex marriages. I'm saying that people who have civil licenses to perform civil marriages should not be permitted to discriminate so long as it's the state that's issuing those civil licenses.
And I'm not an attorney. The distinction is when they perform the marriage in the sanctuary, okay, they're still empowered with civil authority to legitimize that marriage in the eyes of the state, correct?
As I understand it.
Right. So my fear is, let me ask you if this is a reasonable fear, that someone will want to make a point and show up to a church and say, we want to get married, and the church says, we love you, you're special, you're part of us. We don't do that. And they'll file a lawsuit, and we'll get a judge, and he'll say, you can still do your ceremony and do whatever you want inside those doors, but the state can no longer be part of enfranchising discrimination. So you can do your marriage, but it will no longer have the civil effect, because as a state, I can't be party to that. That's not a reasonable fear tomorrow or next week, but is it a reasonable fear in 5 years?
No.
Okay, fair enough.
No, in fact, I think that there are a couple of things at play here. One is the sanctity of the sanctuary. We're talking about clergy operating on their own tax-exempt turf. But there are also implications, I think, that are recognized and addressed in Senate Bill 1 concerning public accommodations, which says your sanctuary is your sanctuary. It's tax-exempt. But if you have a for-profit adjoining structure where parties are held and you get money for it, you cannot discriminate, because it's a public facility, essentially. You cannot discriminate from allowing Jews, allowing same-sex couples to access those facilities that are otherwise available and accessible for a fee by other members of the community.
Okay, members, any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Next
Thank you.
testifier, please.
Aloha.
Oh, no.
I'm number 3742. My name is Reverend Carrie Grogan. I'm a pastor of Christ Church Uniting Disciples and Presbyterians in Kailua. Why rush this? It's causing division. Wait. God's word is clear. It's not natural. It's immoral. These are things that were all said by good Christian folk in response to the Civil Rights Act, in response to dismantling Jim Crow laws, in response to allowing women the right to vote, and in response to slavery. I stand here as a Christian, as a clergy, as an ordained minister, strongly in favor of SB1. In spite of the religious testimony flooding these chambers, worth at least a month of Sundays for you all, I'm sure, the Marriage Equality Act is not a religious issue. It is an issue of civil rights. It is a justice issue. To extend civil rights to a minority group does not allow the people to decide. Our nation would still be run by a slavery economy. Women wouldn't have the right to vote, and the South would still be legally segregated. Based on the prevailing arguments we've heard on SB1, interracial marriage would be illegal. As a pastor, I have the religious freedom to marry or to not marry anyone based on my own religious beliefs and values. For example, I know colleagues who say, I choose not to marry a couple who have been cohabitating. Martin Luther King Jr. reminds us that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. Please stand on the side of justice.
Thank you so much. Next up, please.
Hello, My name is Keola Maclos. My number is 3716. I'm a 15-year-old of Waipawa High School. What is love? What is marriage? God ordained love. God created love. God is love. God created marriage.
I'm sorry. Please stop the clock for a second. I'm sorry, you're 3716?
Yes.
Because I have Deborah Yako.
Oh, yes, that's my mother. She signed up for me because
Okay.
I'm a minor.
Okay, thank you. Continue.
Okay. Let me continue. What is love? God ordained love. He created marriage in Genesis 2, verse 24. This is why man should leave his father and mother and be united with his wife. This is not man and man. It's not woman and woman. This is man and woman. And when we try to play with what God created, this is when God steps in. And this is when he tells you that you need to respect what I created. Can you guys please look at me? Because I feel like you guys aren't paying attention. Yes, sorry. Thank you. And when you start playing with that, he starts to tell you, let me give you an image. You have a key and you have a knob. The key goes into the knob, but it can't go in by itself. The person, think of it as God, he puts the key in the knob. A knob can't fit in the knob. A key can't fit in the key. See, there's two different things, just like man and woman. Woman was taken from the rib of man so that they may be united once again and fill the holes that they have. Please, this bill does not need to be rushed. If you notice, everyone out here, we tell you, pass testimonies. This is too short of a time. If you notice, all of this controversy between the two sides, there's so much problems that we don't even know, that we haven't discovered. So please, don't rush this. Thank you, guys. Let the people decide. I love you guys. God bless.
Thank you very much. Next testifier, please.